This morning I woke up and, well, I wouldn't be sat here right now if I didn't wake up, so that's the fundamental part. But this morning, after I woke up, I read James Smith's daily email, famous daily email by the way. He's talking about the consumer, the method, and the principle in various orders. The consumer is you, me, him, the Queen. The method, which is the whole purpose of this vlog, and I have a fun method that one of my best mates gave me. Actually, it was his girlfriend's idea, so he can't really take the credit, so we'll give her the credit, Laura. Mr. Greedy eats clean to get lean. We'll talk about that in a minute, but any fad diet, any manipulation of how to lose weight is a method. Now, the method can be whatever the fuck you want it to be, because if it works for you, then you're winning. The principle is a calorie deficit. There is no physical way you can lose weight whilst consuming more than your body burns. It's just not possible. So I am training my two best mates at the moment. I say I'm training, I'm not training them. I'm giving them nutritional information, working out their calories and their macros. Follow the line of videos down and you will get to that one. Flick me your information. I'll happily get back to you with your macros and your calories for a deficit and or maintenance and surplus, whatever you want. You just let me know. So Charlie and Omid, both sides of the spectrum, and actually they're on the same point. It's just the two different methods they have. His style of dieting, getting to his endpoint is essentially 5-2. So he eats super clean for 5 days and has the weekend off with his girlfriend. It's not wrong. But he is a sort of person that can eat chicken, rice and veg through the week, and then at the weekends he knows he's going out for dinner, and that works perfectly for him. So let's move to Omid. He would technically be a keto dieter. Now the reason why I say that is because the foods he likes are more fatty. He is half Iranian. They love picking cured meats and all that kind of stuff, but their diet is slightly higher in fat, less in carbs. So technically he's a keto dieter. Now neither of my best friends have said they're either. Neither of them are saying I'm doing this because I'm doing this. They are both in calorie deficits, both losing weight. Me personally, I'm doing the same thing as them. We're kind of all on like a 10-week mini shred, and I'm testing the intermittent fasting, and I don't even give two flying monkeys about 16-8, purely because the only reason why I'm doing it is because I find that the day sometimes is quite long, especially the weather like it is, and it being the summer, you're awake and more mobile for longer. I'm trying to reduce the amount of time that I'm allowed to eat calories in. This morning I pushed breakfast until about 11 o'clock. Now lots of people, James says in his email, just because somebody skips breakfast doesn't make them an intermittent faster. It just means that that's what they do. His words, calorie deficit. It really doesn't matter. So my best mate Charlie and his girlfriend Laura bought me this. I was cooking one day, they just turned up with this book, and it is Mr. Greedy Eats Clean to Get Lean, Mr. Men Collection. Now it's quite amusing, so let's get into it. Mr. Greedy liked to eat. In fact, Mr. Greedy loved to eat, but the older he got, the fatter he got. The more he drank, the fatter he got. The longer he was married, the fatter he got. Until his middle-age had spread so much that he stopped wearing clothes altogether. Naughty Mr. Greedy. Mr. Greedy lived in Fatland, where everyone loved their food. They liked nothing more than devouring a cheeky Bruno, downing a cheeky wine, and demolishing a cheeky cheese board. Now, there should be cheeky Nando's in here as well, but that's actually quite good for you. Followed by a cheeky bottle of Gaviscon the next day, but things were changing. It all began when Mr. Small started juicing. Then Mr. Muddle read somewhere that it only took 15 minutes to get lean in 15. So he spent 10 minutes exercising and 5 minutes posting pictures of himself in the gym. Then he got himself some personal trainers. Not an actual personal trainer, but personal trainers. Anyway, moving on, let's try and focus. And Mr. Ticker was on the 5-2 diet. Unfortunately, he'd got that wrong and had fasted for 52 days straight. He lost so much weight in such a short amount of time that his arms were now mostly loose skin. Mr. Greedy thought it was all rather silly. One day he was in the park thinking how silly it all was when he saw his friend Mr. Worry walking very quickly. 9,993, 9,994, 9,995, counted Mr. Worry. Morning, said Mr. Greedy. Don't interrupt me, said Mr. Worry. I'm counting my 10,000 steps. I read it in the Daily Fearmongerer that if you don't count them, it's really bad for you. Shall we have breakfast when you're done? Breakfast takes 10 years off your life, panicked Mr. Worry. I must go. Off he went again. 1, 2, 3. At least Mr. Greedy had Mrs. Greedy. Here's my jelly bean, she said as he got home. I got you a treat. Mr. Greedy peeked in the box. And what do you think he found? Black Forest Gatto, jam donuts, chocolate eclair, courgette cake. Alright, Mr. Greedy. Why would she get something so green? Mr. Greedy had strong views on vegetables masquerading as cakes. Had she been brainwashed too? Surely not. Come to think of it, she'd been hiding the biscuit tin and she had been leaving, and she did keep talking about her colleague, Mr. Perfect, who cycled everywhere and still had all his own hair. What was she trying to tell him? He was sure it was all fine and she wasn't having an affair, but just to be on the safe side, he decided to become an irresistible, muscle-bound god. Luckily, just at that moment, he saw an advert for Mr. Strong's boot camp. Are you getting fat? Old? Bald? Does your tummy have so many rolls you could open a bakery? Sign up to Mr. Strong's boot camp and get square in no time. Like the pun there. Don't just take our word for it. I was bullied at school, now I can tie a knot in an iron bar. Mr. Strong, age 37. Oh, there's an asterisk. May take a lot of time. That was after get square in no time. Disclaimers, love it. There's honesty in this book. So Mr. Greedy went to boot camp, which for absolutely no reason started at 6 AM on a Saturday. Boot camp starts with protein, shouted Mr. Strong. 73 raw eggs later, all Mr. Greedy had done was a load of burpees and been sick on the floor. Keep going, bellowed Mr. Strong. Don't you want to be able to tie a knot in an iron bar? Not really. What's the point? Mr. Greedy said. Because Mr. Strong fell silent. For the first time in his life, he questioned his entire existence. Then he quickly overcompensated by pushing over a tree and yelling testosterone. The only pounds Mr. Greedy had lost were the 350 he had spent on the boot camp joining fee. At least I tried, he shrugged. Heading home, he bumped into Mr. Perfect, who was busy doing squats. Mr. Perfect had hair, a perfect smile, and perfect fitting cycling shorts that revealed a lot about him.
What are you doing? Get back over on your side of the... Hello! Hi. I'm Joey. We haven't met.
He stood up and appeared to be holding something he'd deposited while squatting. Energy ball, he said? No thanks. Mr. Greedy was greedy, but even he had his limits. After begrudgingly sponsoring Mr. Perfect 50 quid for tough Mr. Mudder, Mr. Greedy decided to give fitness one more go. He went to see little Miss Somersault. She was busy balancing an interior design business, raising 6 gifted children, teaching Guru, and building her lifestyle brand, Clean Living Guru. Alright, arrogant. I treat my body like a temple, which means I clean everything, said little Miss Somersault. As she cleaned Mr. Greedy from top to bottom, you simply buy food that is whole, unprocessed and direct from the health shop. Or from Eat and Eat Lean. Okay, said Mr. Greedy. And then you put it in the dishwasher, said little Miss Somersault, just to make sure it's extra clean. She was just on a cool... Don't do that with any of your food, by the way. You did not hear that here first. This is a fictional book. She was just on call from one of her many celebrity clients when all of a sudden she cocked her leg in the air and bent over backwards. Are you alright? Asked Mr. Greedy. I'm fine, she replied. I'm doing the upward facing farting dog. Nothing like a fart joke, eh? Nothing was working. He even tried calling Mr. Clumsy, who had recently gone gluten-free, but it wasn't a good time. Oh dear. Little things, eh? What's the matter? Said Mrs. Greedy at dinner that evening. You haven't touched your fava beans. Favour beans. Mr. Greedy explained how he had been trying to lose weight so that she'd fancy him again. Fancy you? Of course I fancy you, she said. And then Miss Greedy explained that she'd been trying to lose weight so he'd fancy her again. Fancy you? Of course I fancy you, he said. So we both fancy each other, they both said. And with that, Mr. Greedy chucked the fava beans in the bin and hugged Mr. Greedy's roly-poly tummy. Then Miss Greedy had a splendid idea to make them both feel better. She invited Mr. and Mrs. Giant from next door around for dinner. And do you know, from that day to this, Mr. Greedy never felt big again. So if you're greedy as Mr. Greedy, you know what to do, don't you? Find some bigger friends. Now that's not necessarily the answer, that's a funny answer. But there is that saying that if you surround yourself with 5 successful people, you'll be the 6th. If you surround yourself by 5 people who don't necessarily have fitness and health in their forefront of their vision, then you may be the 6th person that's like that. With my example I said earlier with my 2 best mates, there aren't any methods that are the method. None of them are the one, but there are many that help a lot and manipulate the diet and the calories and give you rules so that you can. Anyway, that's a bit of fun from me. I hope you enjoyed the Eat Clean to Get Lean by Eat and Eat Lean. But that's it. If you've got any questions, feel free to slide into the DMs, hook me up, Johnny at eatandeatlean.co.uk. Like, comment on pictures, hashtag always plug life. If you've got any questions about anything, feel free to pick my brains. I'll happily get back to you. If I don't know the answer, I will endeavour to find the answer for you. Anyway, peace.